Hello again, everyone. Welcome to 90s to Now. As always, I'm Jerry Strauss. And as always, we have an awesome conversation here for you. You're looking at your screen, you see who we have, you're excited. I want to do this thing, the thing. I don't have anything. I don't have anybody's jaw to fake knock into. I don't have the theme music, but she's here. She is someone that we got to know, we got to love through our years watching Beverly Hills 90210 and have continued to love and admire and be excited to talk to Gabrielle Carteris. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank
That's
you. Thank you.
it's so great. So excited to talk to you. Not nearly as excited, I have to say, as the throngs of 90210 fans of our show, everyone who responded once we put out into the world that you were going to be on this episode. The questions we have received, uh, people must have been working on these for months and years just with the idea that someday this would happen. So
So I have to say up front, there might be a lot of things I don't remember, but you'll answer what I don't know. How's that?
oh,
'Cause I have a
we'll
feeling you know more than me.
we'll muddle through it together. You
Okay.
know, I want to ask you something before we get to everyone's questions. I get to go first. I got the mic. Um, your work beyond 90210, so much of it has been involved in the industry that is
Mhm.
Hollywood, that is entertainment. And we're talking right now as we speak. We're kind of in the middle of a very odd time in Hollywood. Once again, we've got a writer's strike, and at this point in time, we're talking about a situation where we don't really know when things will be back in full force as far as production of scripted TV shows. Do you think this is a time where that nostalgia factor, people flocking back to a show like 90210 and all their favorites, like is this when streaming services, when the entertainment world kind of doubles down on everyone kind of flocking back to those things since
Oh, absolutely. I actually think that this is going to be, you'll see the rebirth of many shows that we haven't watched for a long time. Also,
Mhm.
you're hearing about studios going into the library of programs they did not air in the past that they might now release. So that they owned, that they decided at one point not to air, and now they're going to. This is more than an odd time, though. I since you brought it up, I will say it's probably one of the most important times I believe in. If you talk about landmark moments, this
Mhm.
is one of those moments in terms of the industry. We have for all of us, we work on an old paradigm with a whole new, but there's a whole new design out there of work, the way it's being presented. And we're being paid on something that used to be, but doesn't reflect what is right now. And so there's been it's so reflective of what's going on in our country. There are only a few really at the very top who've actually are able to sustain a living. And then you have everybody else who's really the working, the working class actor, the working class writer, the working class director, the people who are really day in and day out. Those are the ones who are really, and the people who are just coming into the industry who are really, really suffering. And it's not just here in the United States. I'm president of FIA, which is the International Federation of Actors all over the world. And we are watching from every country, whether they're working on our contracts or not. They are watching this strike. They will watch the potential strike of maybe the DGA, maybe SAG-AFTRA,
Mhm.
because this issue, what's taking place here today, is present in the industry throughout the world. It is truly, this is a pivotal moment in our history for the industry and for people to survive instead of just have a hobby. This is really a really important moment in time. So I think this is going to be very painful for a lot of people, but it's a really important moment. So you brought it up, just had to say it, put it out there, you know.
No, it's I mean, I think most of us don't really appreciate the fact that those of us not involved in the industry, for us, it's all fun and games. For us, it's a luxury to be able to enjoy this stuff, but there's real human beings that are, working hard and suffering. And again, like this is an industry, this is, something about their lives, their lifestyle, and there's a battle being fought. So, I mean, you know, again, for most of us, it's, oh no, my favorite TV show may not come back in time in the fall. But
For some people,
again,
they'll lose
yeah,
their homes. This is a really, some people, this is about not only not being able to get health care or, whatever. It's about paying a rent. It's about food on the table. It is about feeding families. This is truly one of the most important strikes in the history of our industry.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we'll continue to keep an eye on that. And of course, it does affect, you know, everything about the entertainment industry and everything that's out there, or maybe will not be out there for us to
Mhm.
enjoy. And again, that's going to make us kind of fall more back on the old favorites.
Right.
And that's what we're here to talk about today. Of course, you know, if you don't know Gabrielle from 90210, then I don't know why you're here, first of all. But you know, certainly one of the more buzzworthy guests, you know, based on the palpable excitement from all over the internet where we promoted this. So why don't we try to get to as many of these questions that have been burning in people's brains, minds, hearts, everything. Let's
Okay.
see. Okay. So we're going to try to shout out as many of you as possible as well. And there's so many, the print is very small. I'm old, so I apologize. I'm going to be taking my glasses on and off. This is sad, pathetic, but I got to do it. Nuraman 00. What was your, this is a good way to start. What was your favorite plot involving Andrea? Of course, have we, we're remiss in not saying, of course, Andrea was your character 90210. What was your favorite plot involving Andrea, and what was your least favorite plot?
Hmm. I had several shows that I really loved, for different reasons. The one of the first shows I loved was our sleepover. I think that when we did the overnight, and that was because it was really a time where it was really establishing our relationships to each other. And Andrea was always on the outside. It was the first time she started to feel like she was a part of something.
Yeah.
My favorite episode to do, and that I actually fought for, was graduation, to do the valedictorian speech. And it was a really interesting time when we were getting ready for graduation, and I went to the writers saying, will Andrea be doing the speech? And they said, well, we were thinking about that, but then we thought maybe it should be Brandon. And I said, I think that's terrible. I said, just because um, Brandon and Brenda are, it's about them. It's also about, somebody who struggled through to be somewhere. It's a young woman who should be able to have a voice. We shouldn't just give it to the guy. And there was a real journey for Andrea's character. And as a result, they actually let me do that speech. And that was really, really meaningful, because I think it was important to show that through all the struggles that Andrea had, she arrived and was able to, she had courage. And as a result of her courage, she was able to achieve something that was meaningful for her. So that was great. I loved when I did the high wire act, because I really did do the high wire, and they wrote that in, and that was something that I had trained for. So that was fun for me.
Yeah.
I guess most of the episodes there, I don't know that there was any I didn't like. There was some that I just did, maybe, had to go and do or whatever, but I remember really the ones I loved. And the one I loved and hated at the same time was My Goodbye. That was a really
Mhm.
emotional day for me, because I'm the kind of person who you have to be able to cry, talk to me even if I'm crying, because I can't help but my feelings come up. And knowing that that was my day to say goodbye to everybody, that was it, even though I'd be coming back as a guest, was really a big step for me. So those are the shows I really,
Yeah.
and I loved being able to have, when Brandon wanted to finally be with Andrea, and Andrea said, you know what, I'm over you now. That was powerful, And I loved the show that I got to do when I was really pregnant. When I gave birth, I was really on the show. I was
Mhm.
giving birth, and I was watching that in the hospital as I was giving birth. And that
Wow.
was, the heart monitor was on me as I was watching the heart monitor on Andrea. So those are the ones, great memories for me, great memories of working with great people, Lainey Kazan being my grandmother, how powerful she is. And that was really interesting. And the people who came to be on our show. There were so many great, really great moments.
That's great. That's great. Now, I want to segue to a question we got from our friend Steve because you had mentioned Andrea being somewhat of an outsider, especially more in the early parts of the show. And he was curious about your relationship, your dynamic with the cast, because there was a bit of an age discrepancy there. A lot of them were somewhat younger, and then the question would be, how did you in the beginning feel like was there instant chemistry among you, or did you feel kind of like fiction mimicking reality? Did you feel like a bit of an outsider for that reason?
That's interesting. I actually, I did feel like an outsider. First of all, I was lying about my age for a while, even to them. So
Mm,
I didn't want to talk about it. I was really nervous. I also, I had come out of New York. Ian also did. Luke didn't start with us, but he came out of New York. But everybody else they were younger, and they were here in LA. Um, and because they were younger, and I was married. I got married during the time. I think it was the second year I was on the show, and I was in a serious relationship. They were still in high school in real
mm.
life. I was 29 playing a 16-year-old, and they were 16, 17-year-olds. So I definitely felt that difference. And I felt, I did feel like a bit of an outsider, I think, through my whole time uh, on the show. Even when we did the reboot, um, there was a part of me that I always felt like I was a little, I don't know, a little bit, but not because of our relationship. I mean, we were, even in the reboot, I mean, we are so much closer because we share so many more life stories together. We've all had children now and been married, and we've gone through life journeys of some of us losing our parents, all the different, things that bring us together. Um, but there's always a part of me, I guess I have a bit of Andrea in me. So, just a little bit of her.
It's kind of nice. It's kind of romantic in a way, just the idea that you're connected with the character still after all these years. um Okay, here, let's see. The Juggernaut. Now, there's some people who submitted up to a dozen questions, so we're going to try to get to everybody and see what we can do. When Andrea got a haircut, was that her choice, or did the producers ask her to do it?
No,
And if,
see, yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go on.
Go on.
No, go on.
I was
Finish
going
up.
to say, if it was your idea, were the producers happy about it?
So when I got my hair cut, I actually wanted to cut it short like this,
Mm,
and they wouldn't let me. So I actually hated the haircut that ended. I said I wanted to get my hair cut, and they cut it, and I did not like it. The person who cut it actually worked on the show, and she said, "I'm going to cut it for you." And I said, "Well, all right." And then I actually had kind of messed it up, and she said, "I'm so sorry. I had seen a video this morning, and I was trying something new on you. It was not a good day."
mhm.
It's not a good day. But I actually like my hair short, and that was the thing I wanted to do. I wanted to cut my hair really short, and they didn't want that, but I didn't like that haircut that I had.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Um, let's see. What did she think about Andrea's styling? Did she have a say on what kind of clothes Andrea wore?
Yes and no. When I started the show, I didn't as much. As time went on, I had more of a say, and it was funny because I think there were times where I wanted Andrea to. I said, just because she's smart doesn't mean she has to be like doesn't have to have style. You know what I mean? There's no reason. There was a lot of it was interesting, a lot of stereotypes, I think, in the show.
Mhm.
Initially, even though we did a lot of things that were breakout things, I think there were still stereotypes that were held on at that time. And one of them was the idea that if somebody, came from a background where they didn't have, strong finances, or they lived in I wasn't in Beverly Hills. They felt that had to be a dowdy look, which I don't agree with at all. I think, it was an interesting, I think there were a lot of stereotypes being played out on that they tried to break through sometimes.
Mhm.
And in retrospect, I think now, like if I talk to Chuck and Karen, Chuck was the executive producer. Chuck will say, yeah, well, it worked for the times, or he'll say some of the things we couldn't, control at the time, Gabrielle, but we wanted to, or, we hadn't thought of it that way. So it's interesting, right? It's 30 years, 31 years later. And
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you think about really the TV landscape back then, really TVs, movies, any pop culture, especially anything aimed at a younger audience, you can't really avoid stereotypes. They were just the norm
right,
at that point. So just the
right,
fact that you guys were breaking some of them was groundbreaking in its
right.
own
It
way.
was right. It was
What
you're absolutely right.
what about the glasses now? Was that something that a decision that was driven by you?
Well, I wear glasses.
Well, right, but I mean, Andrea's shift away from glasses to contacts.
Yeah, that went you know what? That was me. I didn't want it. I really did feel like I was being typecasted all the time. And I think in I don't always want to be seen in I wear my glasses now all the time. I can't help it.
Mhm,
But during that time, I had actually gotten laser surgery
mhm.
and I didn't have to wear glasses. You know what I mean? Like, so that was powerful for me because my whole identity has been with glasses. I don't know about I see you have glasses too, so I don't know.
Mhm.
Sometimes I feel, I love my glasses, I don't have a problem with them. Sometimes I think I hide behind my glasses. They're comfortable for me, and when I take them off, I feel a little bit naked,
Oh,
and
yeah. Not
yeah,
taking off my glasses is it's can be horrifying if you're
it's
used to wearing them because it's
well,
like
and it's yeah, it becomes a part of your thing, right? And I guess so part of it was me kind of trying to break out of that a little bit. It's a personal journey when you're working on a show. They write for us, and the stories, the characters, after you're on for a while, they in order for it to be effective, they have to take things from your real life. I just don't think you can maintain just having something that's totally different, even if it's your character maybe is not a good person, you're a good person or whatever. You still have things that you're going to share, and those are the things that they developed, and they allowed me to do certain things, not
Mhm,
wear my glasses all the time, get pregnant really in real life, and be on the show.
mhm.
There were certain things that they allowed me to, be the valedictorian. So those are the things I was allowed to do.
Nice. Let's see here. Metzger for Sheriff. We support that campaign wherever that may be happening. We really like how they incorporated some of her real life skills and talents into the show. You mentioned it before, tightrope walking. Was there ever any discussion about having Andrea mime? Is that in your toolbox, miming?
Yeah, I traveled. It's so funny that somebody knows that. Yes, I was in a mime book when I was younger. I traveled through Europe as a mime with a group. And I did that when I was in high school. And I actually did political actions when I wasn't old enough to vote yet. I would create mime. It was kind of like a mime choreography, kind of like a storytelling, to activate people to vote and to tell a story when things. For instance, we did a whole thing on, at the time there was a proposition. I forget what it was in Northern California, where teachers couldn't be gay. They couldn't be openly gay,
Mm.
and so I did a whole choreographed a whole thing about what that looked like in a different way. So storytelling to show the injustice of that. So yes, I did mime, and I'm glad they didn't. I would never have done it on 90210. I The high wire was good for me. I did signing on the show because I used to translate when I was younger.
Mhm.
Um, I don't sign well at all anymore now, but it was great. They incorporated the fact that I had, signed when I was younger, into the show. So, but no, no mime, no mime.
Okay. Uh, let's see. Here we go with the glasses again. Realistic Quiet 8856. What is a plot from another character that she would have liked for Andrea? Also, would she have liked Steve and Andrea as a couple? Now, we've gotten many questions about that second part, and I recently happened upon the clip that I'd entirely forgotten that was a tease thing. You and Ian Ziering as a couple. But before we even get there, was there any storyline that you thought would have been great for Andrea that instead went to one of the other characters?
Gosh, no, I I don't know if there was storylines. I think that what I had wished was that I think that when my age came out and when I had the baby, when I had my daughter, even though Aaron said that was okay, for me to get pregnant, so I went to Aaron to talk to him about getting pregnant. My husband and I wanted to have a child, and I didn't want to hide it. Though they supported that, I think that they never knew how to deal with that. And so I don't think there was one storyline I would have liked, but what I would have appreciated was them allowing Andrea to be more involved with some of the social things that went on. I think it was very difficult for them to write because their intelligent, their minds knew too much about my personal life
Mhm.
to be able to, they didn't know how to incorporate it into the other part of the stories. It was interesting. It was a very interesting journey that way.
Yeah.
But no, the storylines, you know, I loved some of the storylines that I had, and no, I don't think so.
How about Andrea and Steve Sanders? It was teased. There was a kiss. There was a clip that, again, I think is still in heavy circulation because people are really shipping the idea of that bit of, I guess, fan fiction of what could have been a more of an extended deal between you guys. Kind of the polar opposite characters of the cast when you think about it. But what did you think about that potential pairing?
You know what? I actually didn't think it was something that was going to happen at all because I remember being when we had to kiss, I was so like stressed out about it because Ian's a friend of mine, and there is, I love Ian, but there's no chemistry that way, right? And it's kind of embarrassing to go and have to to go and kiss a friend. I can't explain it. It was very no, but I never thought that that was going to happen. That's so funny that people really hooked on to that. And they
Yeah.
loved when we were together. They loved the whole egg thing that we did. And I mean, people talk about it all the time to me. And I don't think I actually connected to that as much then as I realize now. Like you said, people talk about it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's crazy to think of how much more discussion about that stuff there would have been back then had it been the time of social media, and now it's like this delayed reaction where it'd be great to go back and revisit some of these things, but all we can do is dream. But there's lots of people dreaming about that still, just so you know.
So
They're
funny.
out there. um let's see here. John Steele, what did you think of Valerie Malone, of course, played by Tiffany Thiessen? Did you get to know each other? Now, she was a later addition in the cast. She came along midway through the series. Um, what was that dynamic like? How did things change when she came on board?
I love Tiffany. I have to tell you, she is a really outstanding woman. She is I loved having her on the show. She was not a game player. She's not only is she talented, she's dynamic, she's bright. So I actually loved having her on the show. And I think that she brought kind of a joy to it and a real kind of like a joie de vivre. I enjoyed having her on the show. I thought she was really great. And she's a really wonderful person. I think how I saw her on the show and how I experienced her is how I see her in life. Just a really great energy, great person.
Cool. Let's see. Effie Sue, what were her favorite? Okay, so this is somewhat of an offshoot of what we discussed before. Do you remember what would be maybe a favorite outfit or a least favorite outfit from your entire time on the show? Is there anything that stands out either on the top or the bottom of that list?
All right, so my two favorite outfits.
One
One,
favorite, one
oh
your
no, I know, but
least.
I have two
Oh,
favorites.
okay.
So two favorite outfits. One would be when I did the chainsaw, just because when I was going, what was it that from the movie Carrie, and
Yeah.
I was so that one because I just was too fun and just out there. And then the one I really loved wearing, and actually it started happening on the show, and then Aaron said, "No, you guys have to start dressing up." Is during our first summer episodes where I just wore my overalls and my tank tops underneath, and then suddenly we all started doing that. And then Aaron said, "No, you guys have to start dressing nice." He didn't want that. So those were my two favorite. Not stuff I didn't like. I don't know. I felt, I I don't think there was anything I didn't like. I didn't love, I felt okay. I think that probably the first I didn't like the stuff I wore on the pilot. I don't know if I didn't like what I wore in the pilot or I didn't like the way I looked, which I don't know which came first, but I think that was
Um, I'll segue into this because we got a bunch of people just commenting on and mentioning the scene where you dreamt that you were walking through the halls of the high school naked.
uh-huh.
Um, so what was your I mean, did you enjoy filming that? That was kind of a fun memory, clearly for a lot of people, but does that stand out to you in any way?
You know what? I forgot about that until we went to do the reboot and we did a thing on that, and that was great to do, but, I don't I don't really remember it.
Which means either it was totally cool or you blocked it out of your
That's
memory
exactly
entirely.
right.
Trauma.
Went right through me.
Let's see. Double O RVR. Did she like Andrea's post high school storylines? I've always heard that Carteris specifically asked for her pregnancy to be written into the show. Does she like the way that it was portrayed? You kind of talked about
Mhm.
life after your character became a mom. Um, but the actual pregnancy storyline, did you like the way that it was handled?
I think I liked it up front when I got pregnant and what went on. I think that it became a really important storyline because that's when the Times went and did a whole thing about they actually attacked the whole idea that, a young girl in high school would get pregnant, who's the smart girl getting pregnant. And I actually wrote something back to the Times regarding the fact that being smart has nothing to do with getting pregnant, in that people things happen in people's lives and choices are made. And I think it was really handled. I really appreciated how it was handled in the pregnancy. I do not think that afterwards,
Mhm.
I really don't think they were comfortable writing. They didn't know how to handle my being. So I don't think it was really. I think it minimized in some ways the trials and the whatever going through as a young woman being pregnant, making choices that they had to have me married, get married, and all those things because they were just afraid to cross the line. It was a really so I don't think that it was handled as much well as I would have liked it to have been because I think that it choked them from being creative.
Do you think, and this is just a question for myself, but do you think that, and this is not a knock on the writers in any way, but just the idea of transitioning these high school students into college years and adulthood, it feels like across the board that has to be a challenging, daunting thing to deal with because how do you maintain sort of the appeal of the tone of the show and the characters, but meanwhile they're growing up, they're not in high school anymore. So it feels like maybe that's part of an even larger challenge that they had to deal with,
It was.
an uphill battle really.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful of you. Actually, I think it really was difficult for them. They wanted the show to continue on. Not everybody could be in the same college together, right?
Right.
How were they going to go and move on and still have, uh, grow the cast because you can't stay in high school forever? How do you grow the storylines? I think it became in some ways for me, I wasn't a regular in the second half of the journey that everybody else was in. But when I would watch the show, I felt that they struggled. I think that sometimes they were reaching for things, right? Because it was so they struggled with it. You're right. I think there was a struggle, and I think the fans stayed with us. They loved the characters, the storylines. Actually, some of them were really impactful. That was the great thing about. But I think that they got into really the beautiful look. Like if you talk about when we first were cast in the show, I remember saying after the show became really popular, if they were casting during the later on, not in the first years of when we did the casting, but if I would be looked at a couple of years after the show had been on, I never would have been cast because I wasn't considered the pretty girl. It became really about beauty in those later years. It was how so everybody had to when when Aaron started the show, he had put around a notice he wanted to be like the show Family in a way that was about real stories, and he wanted it to feel real. And so he wasn't looking that everybody had to be matchbook pretty, right? As the time, I think, as the show developed, it became all about fashion. It became all about, you know, pretty. And I think that that made it not as pretty. For me,
Right.
right? I liked the more of the rawness of it in the beginning. I liked that it wasn't so formulaic, and I think that as it went on, you know, that's my feeling, but
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, and again, we're talking about a show that had a popularity that endured, allowed it to go for all those seasons, and not a knock on anything. Evolution is always a challenge of a TV show that lasts
yes.
that long. But that's why we're still talking about it now, because overall, still something so great, so well remembered. Um, all the more so, of course, because of your part in it, of
Right.
course. Um, let's see here. Oh my goodness, Brox Chosita would like to know, uh, were there any cast members that Gabrielle didn't get along with? And I know that that's a pretty negative question to ask, but were there any challenges that you can recall at any point with kind of finding the right vibe with your castmates?
When you're together for a long time, there are people who I was very close to and people I was not as close to. But overall, it was a pretty overall it was really a great family experience, right? But there was I won't go to the there everything's not always going to be roses, and it wasn't always. So
Mm.
but that people who, there are also lifelong friends for me out of this show that that I will always be grateful for having in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, anything related to 90210 at this point, we are going to get a ton of questions about the great Luke Perry.
Mhm.
Um, someone that that you guys obviously and fans still remember so fondly to this day. What was the what was Luke's role in this family, so to speak? What did he bring from a personality perspective
Yeah.
to that family dynamic?
Luke he was really a fine human being. He was really so Luke was very sensitive. When my mom died, he reached out to me when I was injured. I was partially paralyzed about 13 years ago.
Mm.
And Luke came to be with me. And he was always that person who, you know, he was an advocate. So Luke was also very courageous. And as much as he loved being on the show, when he didn't love it anymore, he didn't love it anymore. But he, he really he had a lot of courage when there was a time that we went to audit Aaron. There was some stuff that was going on that we weren't so sure about the money, and I had gone to the cast saying why I felt that we should do this audit, and I didn't want to go and do it on my own because I felt if I did it by myself then I would be fired, but if we did it as a cast,
Mm.
that we would, there's strength in unity. I'm a big proponent of that. And it was Luke who actually said, okay, let's go for it. And he with Jason, they helped to get the legal team together to do the audit and I was right. There was some stuff that went on there and
Mm.
we were able to do that. But Luke was, in many ways, he was fearless. Or even if he was fearful, because everybody has anxiety or whatever, but he was fearless. He was a really an interesting man, and it was really sad when he passed. It really was.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, am I reading this correctly? Yes, Tumor Girl would like to know. You had mentioned her before, but what was it like working with the legendary actress Lainey Kazan?
I had to say, so I've worked with Lainey again. After that, we did a play reading together
Mm,
where she played my mother. It was exciting to work with her. Lainey she is a true diva. So in terms, and not a negative way, she is one of the people that when you're with it, they're an icon. There was something, she is very powerful, and she knows her power. Her voice is strong. Her stories are great. She had so many good stories to share. She's very supportive. It was really powerful to be able to work with her. That was for me a real honor. She was really dynamite.
that's awesome. Were there any moments that made you, Gabrielle, cringe or feel uncomfortable, like the moment between her and Brandon on the carousel? Do you remember that moment? I'm trying to
No,
place it myself, but was there something creepy going on the carousel?
I don't I don't remember. I don't know. Maybe somebody can help us with that one.
Was there let me ask a broader question because you'd mentioned sort of that absolute platonic chemistry between yourself and Ian. Uh what obviously we had many of those moments with you and Jason Priestley throughout the series. What was that like for you? Was that equally odd, or what was your relationship like with him, and how did that translate into the romance that almost sort of kind of was and then wasn't and then
Right.
never became?
Well, because it started off, uh, Jason's character, Brandon and Andrea started off with chemistry in the very beginning. So my meeting Jason,
Mm,
my relationship was built and started on that relationship of Andrea and Brandon having some kind of energy and chemistry. So it was not as uncomfortable because that's kind of that's how I met him. That was
yeah.
the nature of of our characters. So it wasn't for me with Ian. I had a whole period of time where we became friends, and that was never in the universe story. And
Mhm.
suddenly it was there, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Right? Like I was embarrassed. But with Jason, that was part of our work, right? And Jason he's such the consummate professional and really great friend. I was, very new to television. I had just done like one or two things before that. And I was anxious sometimes with the show. I remember being, when I first started, and I was like, I just got famished. There was a scene that was just, oh, and Jason like said, everybody like cool it, like, and he was really able to be with me there and really be supportive. He was a beautiful person to work with. I really love Jason and respect him, and just am so grateful that he was the person that I got to go on that journey with.
That's an interesting part of the cast dynamic again, because we talked about, a little bit of that age difference, but at the same time, you're walking in, you're kind of new to the TV game and you're nervous, but someone like Jason had done some stuff already on TV. He was already part of Sister Kate and whatever else he'd done. So that had to feel like kind of an equalizer, right?
Oh, well, an equalizer. I mean, yes, I don't know what you mean by equalizer. So,
Well, meaning that, in a way you almost feel like you've got more life experience. You're in maybe like a level above them in life because you're a little bit older. And when you're that young, listen, being 19 and being 21 feels like a 20-year difference. So, you
when
had
I
a
was
bit.
29, right? So,
Yeah.
but I actually didn't feel like I had more going on like with life experience. I didn't feel that I didn't recognize the age difference as much until like there was the parting going on, or we were go that was different for me because I was in a different place. I was getting married, I was going to have my children. So I was definitely not in the same headspace as they were all the time. But I
Mhm.
didn't feel that difference. I think that a lot of them had more experience than I did. So Jason having that, because he was a child actor as well, right?
Yep.
So
Mhm.
he actually became a teacher for me. I don't think I think I noticed the age difference even more when I had to hide it, but that it was, found out through the press. That was very hard on me. And then I think when I had my first child, And then that's really when I felt like, wow, that's the age. That's when I started to feel, oh, I'm in a different kind of,
Yeah.
whoa.
I like that noise, by the way. That is the perfect representation of parenthood. I'm with you. You mentioned the reboot. We've gotten several questions about this. Of course, we're a couple years removed from it now. BH 90210. Of all the revivals of TV shows of the past, probably the most unique take
Mhm.
that we've seen thus far. What did you think of the concept of bringing back this show that was a fictional account of the performers, the actors behind the show, but in a fictional setting?
We worked on developing the story on it, on how to, to create the show. There was a big push to let's just have them come back as, all these years later together.
Yeah.
And then there were the people who said, no, we're not, I won't do the show if it's that. It has to be something different. Then that was kind of this kind of hybrid that actually Tori and Jenny had, originally started the concept, brought us all together. And then we all started talking about it. It was, I think it was really, really exciting to do it for myself. I felt that I actually closed a circle after all these years and having, the show changed our lives. I think it was a really great way for me to just finish the book on it. I wasn't as resistant. Some people were like, I'm not going to go back to be, my character the way I was. And I didn't have all those things. I was just happy for us to be together and look at it. I don't think that I think that we did some really interesting things. I think that it would have been great if we could have really found our voice. I don't think we found our voice totally in this reboot.
Hmm.
So there's a reason that I would have loved us to have more time to do that. But I thought it was really fun. I really enjoyed being with everybody this time around in a very different way. I loved being there, feeling that we all had journeyed to this time in life together and we could be together. It was really a wonderful experience. Really, I mean, profoundly life-changing. It was great.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it was a similar moment for fans, just to be able
Mm,
to see you guys together again, sort of on the other side of all these years, and you made it. You're adults, and um, just the the performers that you continue to be able
mhm,
to come back and deliver this entertaining show that I thought, again, creative, unique, a cool way to wrap things up, to wrap up the story
great.
for you guys. And we're about to wrap up here. Thank you so much for joining us. I know we're short on time. I'm going to pick one random final question for you, Gabrielle.
Okay.
um, this is about as random as it gets. This is also from that juggernaut. I'm from Spain.
Mhm.
Has Gabrielle ever listened to Andrea's voice in the Spanish dub or any other foreign dub? If so, what did she think about it? That has got to be a mind blowing experience.
Oh my God, it is really. I've heard myself in Japanese, I think. I've seen when I was in Spain several times, I've seen myself speak in languages that I wish I spoke. I literally am so shocked though with the voices that they decide to put with my face, like with
Yeah.
me. And I'll say, that's not the tone of my voice. Like it could have a totally different sound, and I'm like, wow, that blows my mind. But I feel like I'm multilingual, and so I can do anything. No,
And
but
exotic, like it must make you feel so exotic. Like,
yes,
damn, I'm
very
sexy.
exotic.
And well,
It's
that's
great.
awesome. And the reason that exists, of course, is because the world continues to love 90210. That's
Okay.
why you're all checking out this interview. And that's why there was such excitement for you to be here, not the least of all from me. So thank you so much, Gabrielle. This has
Thank
been
you.
awesome.
Thank you. It
And
was really lovely. Thank you.
yeah, and thank you guys for checking us out this time on 90s to now. We'll catch you on the flippity flip, youtube.com/ at 90s to now. Catch up on all the episodes and watch this one again, share, subscribe, do all the things. And we'd love you for it. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you. You take care.
You too. Thanks.